Yeah, it's a community can't be just created, it can't be built, it can't be a campaign. And one of the worst things big companies do, and small companies do it as well, is to try to do it, to especially go out and try to create a community. I heard an analogy. It's like filming a play and calling it a movie. Is using your old mindset and applying it to social networking and communities. Communities and social networking, it didn't get invented 10 years ago. Communities just went online and found a better way to collaborate. And to be honest, they were running 1,000 miles the other direction from the marketing people and advertising people and PR people who were screaming and yelling at them and not listening. So to try to turn around and go, oh, I'll use exactly the same agency, the same people, to suddenly now to be integrated and to interactive is always going to be a screw up. So no mistake that those things happened. I think it's just as dangerous to hire a social networking or social media consultant or an agency. It's about participating. And it's one thing I would add to the list is the participation. You can't just build it and hope everyone's going to come, whether it's a new startup, a small business or a large business. The best thing to do is go out and just talk to people. That's what it's really about, communities and social media. It's people talking. And Ross is right, the conversation's been going on for ages. It's just scaring the shit out of them now because it's actually causing some damage. They used to have the loudest voice and now they don't. The great thing is, small businesses and young companies can use that in a disruptive way. They've got exactly the same platform. Better platforms, because they're not bound by communications and legal departments who won't let them say stuff and publicly traded company rules. You can actually go out and create some value and talk about it in an honest way. So I think that's a big part that's changed, is that there is 1.8 billion people on the web right now, but the real value is much more interactive, much more one-to-one.
Nick, your background is an interesting one. I think in the description, I think the word infamous was used. Why was the word infamous used with Kazaa?
Well, multiple reasons. I was head of marketing for Kazaa. It was the company that came after Napster in terms of downloadable media. We had millions of customers, millions of downloads, made lots of money, had lots of fun, built a lot of web businesses, but we also got sued by $820 billion worth of companies. So considering at that point we were a 8-person company out of Cremorne, when you answer the door and a guy gives you a 400-page subpoena from Sony, Disney, Universal and Viacom, you pay attention. But, so that's where the infamy comes from. But that was a rare opportunity for me to be able to work on a global business that was having 4 million downloads a week. And on the back of that, we learned about building web businesses. And one of the great things about the web is which a lot of advertising people and marketing managers get scared shitless by, is it's so measurable. But when you're in a small business, that's beautiful, because you don't have to go and get a Super Bowl ad to test whether your new business idea is going to work. You can go either just put a link on a page, set up a blog, buy a couple $100 worth of AdWords, drive some traffic to a page, use free tools like Google Website Optimizer, do some A/B testing, and see if it works at a small unit level. See if you can make profit on 10 customers, then you can go get 1,000. But one of the biggest advice I have for people in terms of online marketing is prove it at a small level first, because you'll be faster, it'll be cheaper and less risky, and then you can always scale up later. Don't believe the bullshit that technology people tell you that you've got to build a scalable system. Having a scalability problem is a good problem to have.
We said before, we talked about the issue of larger companies building platforms and mistaking them for communities. They were doing that as a way to gain a degree of ownership of their particular audience, and they overarched and they failed at doing so. The irony is that as a small company, you can do that. You can create your own environment, your own network, your own media channel. You can create your own audience, and then through that audience scale up, and to a degree own your audience that you can talk to directly rather than spend a lot of money on television advertising. So.
And a quick point on that, one of the online communities in Australia that the telcos fear incredibly is Whirlpool. And it was started by a really quiet, non-assuming guy and now it has millions and millions of page views a month, like 5 million plus. But it took him 10 years to build it. 10 years to do it, and he didn't violate that community once. He didn't put ads on it. If you pay for that, you don't see any ads. If you're a good member, you don't see any ads. He looks after them religiously. But it took him 10 years to build it. So when your next campaign says, well, we've really got to sell some more product in March, why don't we build a community and do a social media campaign? It's just not going to happen. It just doesn't happen that quickly because it's meaningful.
You get, oh, sorry, Ross? Go on, Ross.
Just, that point, that goes back to what I was saying about the influence of reputation, which means, the other key trend I was going to mention before is that the shift is from the corporate to the individual. So, reputation and largely influence resides in the individual. So, more and more, that's what companies need to do is to find and to develop people who are working for them to be influential, to have that strong reputation, and to be able to speak on behalf because they are trusted as individuals. So that goes back, linking back to what Mick was saying, this is something where for the long term, you can't there's some things you can do in a couple of month campaign, but you really need to say, we are going to develop our voice. We are going to reach out to community. We are going to do things which make us trusted. We are going to point people to things which are really worthwhile in content. And as you build that, more and more and more becomes possible. So it is that long term of building your influence, your reputation, the quality of content, the ability to point things, to engage well, to facilitate communities, to add value to communities. Then more and more and more becomes possible into engaging in all this stuff.
It's actually a brilliant segue into another area that I want to talk about, and Nick mentioned it, which is measurement. So when we're looking at online marketing and the like, the first big fear of organisations seems to be this whole idea of shareable, what people can do with your content, how they can talk back, all the rest that goes with it, participation. But one of the first things that you would imagine that anyone in marketing or growing a business or business development should be thinking about what are my goals? What am I trying to achieve? What should I be trying to measure? Now, it's interesting that you mentioned reputation because it's something that's very difficult to measure. You can only measure it when your reputation's going down the toilet. Then something new was something that you had that was of value. But there are other areas. I was wondering whether Tim, actually that's Heather. We haven't heard from Heather much. What are some of the most common goals of digital marketers that you deal with? Do they have clear goals?
No. A lot of briefs that have come across my desk in the last 2 years have been, let's do a social media campaign. They don't know what they want to do. They just know that somebody higher up has said, what's this Twitter thing? We need to get on this. I had a very large client who got told by their boss that they needed to set up a Facebook page. So they thought the best way to do this was to set it up and not have a content strategy for it, which is something I harp on all the time, and just buy a couple of roadblocks. And a Facebook roadblock basically costs anywhere between $30,000 and $40,000 a day. It reaches every Australian user, and I think they ran it for a week. So
what did you call it?
A roadblock.
A roadblock.
Yes.
And that's a form of Facebook advertising.
Yes. So they've adopted a lot of very American advertising lingo because all of their salespeople in Australia are American. But they built up a very large fan base, almost 100,000 people, and these people don't even like their product. The only reason that they were fans of this page was because it was another button in the corner that they could click. So when they started running campaigns that, pushing out videos and stuff that these people didn't agree with, all that was on their Facebook page was a backlash, talking about how crap their service was, how crap their food was, how crap this ad was. So, just because you can spend a lot of money on advertising doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting a captive audience who are going to love your product.